I'm a senior at Bishop Kelly High School. Some people say that your past dictates your future. And it makes sense at first, but I mean, is it really true all the time? At least I know that the One Stone team members, and myself included, we don't think so. And on May 19th, we had an event called Spark. This was sort of like a field day for at the Boise Language Academy, which is an ESL school for refugees. And throughout the day, we split up into teams. There were many activities, from relays and soccer to beadwork. And it lasted about 3 hours long, which may seem like a short time, but in these 3 hours, there was there was evidence that your past does not dictate your future. But also, I know that these 3 hours will stay with me for the rest of my life, and that the amazing kids that we all got to work with won't forget that one day either, when a couple of high schoolers just came to their school to have fun and create good memories. Also, the play we just did, if you guys remember, the main theme of the play was about memories and what a memory really is. Everyone has their own definition of a memory, but ultimately I think we can all agree that memories can either evoke good feelings or bad. And when it came to Spark, our mission was to inspire confidence in these kids and to create good memories, and especially ones that they can look back at with a smile on their face. And at Spark, everyone was separated into different stations, and I was at the beadwork station. And there were only girls at my station, but these were the most dynamic and animated and humorous group of girls I've ever worked with. They were always telling jokes and laughing and having a good time. There were 6 girls, and I asked where they all were from, and it ends up that 2 were from Baghdad, Iraq, 1 was from Somalia, 1 from Kenya, 1 from Uganda, and 1 from the Congo. Of course, when I think of these places, honestly, the images that form in my head usually involve guns and violence and oppression and death. But these places are home to these girls. They thought nothing of it, of course, and kept making their bracelets, continuing with their merriment and conversation. And so I paused for a minute and I thought, what was the best way to connect with these girls without prodding too far? And so we began talking about the Boise Language Academy and their new life in Boise. And at one point, though, the girl from the Congo, she said something that really struck me. She said, "I like this school. Back at home, we didn't go to school. Nobody liked it because they would beat you." And at first, this was like the shock of jumping into an ice-cold lake. It's so sudden and blunt. And honestly, it was so shocking to me that this happened. And of course, I mean, I know things like this happen, and not everywhere is perfect, like Boise, Idaho. But the fact that this is just the first time I had ever been so confronted with it. I've read books upon books about just this, but now this was the real deal. This single statement took me there, to the Congo and to Iraq, like no other book or article had ever done before. Her face was still retaining that happy glow somehow, had undergone a complete transformation into this stoic, serious face of an individual who had lived and who had seen more than I would ever know. And she was only about a couple years over half of my age. And the other girls added on with their own stories. And I tried my best to conceal my horror. I kept telling myself to stop acting so naive and so ignorant. And I managed to shake off the initial blow, but I just couldn't still help that feeling of guilt. I felt so selfish and so vain for ever complaining about anything. I know that I will never have to worry about having to leave my country because my neighbors are being killed, as one of the girls from Iraq was describing. And I know that I will never have to go through a trip consisting of 7 flights through countries I had never heard of and dialects I couldn't possibly hope to understand. At this point, I no longer looked at these girls as the mentor inspiring the young minds, but instead as the child looking up to the strong, incredible people in front of me, only hoping that maybe someday I would be fearless and unshakable like them, that maybe one day I might grow up to fill their shoes. And I tried my best. I had looked for ways to let them know that I was there for them. And so I thought about their struggles and their stories, and suddenly it came upon me I had the perfect parallel. Both of my parents grew up in communist Poland. They had to escape as well and came to the land of the free in the hopes of a better life. I considered it a connection, so I brought it up. None of them had heard of Poland, but most of them had heard of Europe and knew about the historic struggles of Europe, and so they appreciated this. And I felt a little bit better thinking I had brought something to the table that may have bridged the gap between us just a little more. And so, as much as I'd love to end this story on a happy note, not all endings are happy, as I learned realistically. Some things may seem well and good and happy, but I found out that this is the last year the Boise Language Academy will be running due to insufficient funds, and that it's closing next year and all the students are going to have to move to the public schools. And I noticed throughout the day, I was walking around and there were groups of best friends who had met and bonded at the Boise Language Academy. And I also heard them all list off different schools they would be attending next year. And it broke my heart because I knew they would have to go through it all over again, start over and make new friends. And I can look at this and say, how cruel can life and society really be? Or I can take a different, more positive perspective and say, life's road has ditches, some have more than others, but how can I help those fallen get back up again? And I walked into Spark with thinking, thinking about how much I was going to inspire and change these young individuals and how we're going to create these good memories together. But I walked out the one being changed, the one being inspired and instilled with a new and broader perspective. And I still believe One Stone ultimately achieved their goal of creating good memories and instilling confidence, and so that these kids can use these memories when they move on to their new schools, and especially in the times of need. But the impact that these kids had on us was equal to, if not greater, and because they really showed us that your past really does not dictate your future. No matter where you're from or what your story is, who you are now reveals how far you've come and how far you can go. So, thank you.